Alright, what is up YouTube? It is K right here. I'm back with another good video for today. Let's talk about shit. I had a lot of boxing topics to cover, but let's just talk about the pure robbery display that we saw yesterday of Oscar Valdez and Robson Conceiciao. And yeah, we'll just recap, the fights that I saw out of the fight card. We'll first start out with the homie, Mr. Xander Sayas, putting on a really good performance against that one other Mexican guy. I forgot the guy's name. I think his name was Castillo or some other, Mexican fighter. He was pretty good. Xander's first fight at 154. The guy definitely had some good veteran level experience that gave Xander some issues, but I wasn't really expecting him to be like that good of a fighter, and I think that was good for the experience builder, because Xander, he needs to be in a fight with a guy that has good, semi awkwardness with his style, so that way that can help his skill set improve better, and he can upgrade to the highest level that he needs to be at 154. But credits to Xander Sayas for having a good successful debut at 154, because I kind of felt like 147 wasn't going to cut out for him, because I mean, if you're going to struggle to make 147, then 154 should be the best option for now, until your body keeps growing and until it stops growing. I mean, he's a really tall kid. I think he's around my height, if not I want to say he has to be at least 2 inches shorter than me, but like, I'm 6 feet and I want to say he's about 5'10", right? Hold on, let me take a look at that. I know Xander, he has to be close to my height. Yeah, Xander Sayas height. Yeah, I am almost pretty sure you are. Like, yeah, he's 5'10". But yeah, but I mean, he's still growing. It's not like it's not like he's any he's any younger than any person that you could think of. I mean, Berlanga, he's 6'1", Omar 5'10", Shakur 5'8". Pedraza 5'9". Damn, Puerto Ricans are so short, except for like Berlanga, who's like probably 1 inch taller than me. But yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's awesome. Like, I have a lot of respect for Xander, much respect to Shakur, and a lot of respect to Omar. Shout out to you, Omar Rosario. Please go check him out. Omar, he just had a fight recently. Did pretty good. It was only like a 6-rounder or 8-rounder, just for him to get back on track. I guess he's just trying to stay busy until Top Rank gives him another opportunity for him to be, back on, on a good card. 23 years old, did his thing, beat some guy by the name of Mark Masira that was at a catch weight. So I think it's pretty good. It's good that, Omar, he's just taking every fight little by little and just perform, at whatever rate that he can get himself to. So much respect to Omar Rosario. But let's talk about Xander Sayas. Xander, he did a pretty good job. He fought this guy. I forgot what this guy was. Let's see. This guy was Castillo, right? That's his name? No, Jose Sanchez. Jose Luis Sanchez. He was a pretty good guy. I actually enjoyed watching this guy fight. He's 28 years old. I was surprised that Xander fought this guy, but he was at Albuquerque, New Mexico. He came to a draw with Adrian Granados, which that was a pretty good fight. I never watched that fight particularly, but I heard that was a really good competitive fight. But we could see that he's fought some good names. He fought Josh Torres, not really that good of a fighter. He fights at 147, and as far as I know, he got dominated by Cody Crowley, a guy that trained at a Floyd Mayweather stable. So, I mean, it's okay. He's not like the best fighter in the world. Cody, he's good. He's a southpaw, but I don't see this guy really going up farther. Yeah, you just keep getting no-name fighters. You're not fighting like any top guy that I can see you be fighting, which is really sad, because it's like look, you could fight Jerron Ennis. You could fight, who else? Lucas Santamaria. Dude, go after Lucas. Take him down. He's 23 years old, young, fit. Take out Harold Calderon. This bum that fought for what, the IBO or the IBA world title. It's just really sad, because it's like all these good fighters that you could just come out of your way and challenge them. Like, go after Paul Kroll, go after Brian Sabayo, go after go after Victor Ortiz. At least get a name. Fight Janelson Figueroa. I'm sure Janelson, he would stop him, but still, it's just like, all these young up and coming fighters, all these guys that are in the prime of their careers. They all need to be centralized to fight each other. It shouldn't just be like, okay, I'm gonna build up my career, fight guys that I think I could beat, but not gonna fight the guys that I don't know if I'm gonna beat, but I'm gonna be battle tested to the point where I don't know if I'm going to survive this fight, or if not, beat this guy. Which, it makes no fucking sense at all. But if we just look at it from an objective point of view, let's just say I'm in the NBA, and I'm put out to play for 20 minutes. I'm coming off the bench, and I'm facing against other players that are coming off the bench, their skill levels are not as high as mine. And let's just say that I'm only coming out to play when my team is winning. I'm not coming out to play when my team is losing. So at what point do I start telling my coach hey, coach, put me out there. I know that I'm ready to take these guys out, and I know I could bring this team back to a victory. When I do know that I am that confident, I should have the ability to prove those skills to my team, right? So in the sport of boxing, if you translate that model, at what point do you say to yourself as a fighter that if you fight guys that are not at your skill level, but yet you're proving to the world that you're the best fighter in the world, how does that make you the best fighter in the world? Versus guys that do all the heavy lifting in the sport, or like any other sport that you see, and yet they're putting themselves to the test to see where their scaling is as far as skill level goes and heart and dedication goes to that sport. At what point do you see yourself to be at that skill cap where you need to improve your skills with the best high level competition? And like I said the other day about sharpening your blade, what is a machete to a regular sword if it's not sharpened enough? And that question can simply be answered with having tougher iron. You need to sharpen your iron with more sharper iron. It's like if you see those samurais in like those samurai movies, why do you see them sharpening their blade more? Why is it that they have to keep sharpening their blade every single day to make sure that they're going to go to war with somebody and kill them with a good with a good chance of winning a possible war or winning a possible battle? The main reason for that is because those samurai soldiers know that their life is on the line, number one, and number two is that they want to make sure that their skills are perfected with the right tools with them for them to win, the conflict. So those samurais are trained to the highest level to make sure that everything that they have been mastering for years upon years, if not decades, that have been taught for thousands of years, to make sure that's ingrained to their mindset to say, before you go to battle, you have to make sure your tools are sharp. You got to make sure your weapons are sharp. You got to make sure your tactics are sharp. You got to make sure your defensive strategy is sharp. Your offensive strategy is sharp. You got to make sure all these, requirements for you to win the war are set. Because if you don't make sure that's there, you're going to end up getting killed. So, you put that mindset into boxing, you have to make sure that monster inside of you is trained to the highest level. It may seem evil, but at the end of the day, it's like with any other contact level sport. If you know you're going to go to war with somebody that's going to bring the best out of you, and you have to think better than those individuals, and you have to be more savage, you have to be more brutal than them, you have to do things way higher than them. Like, one of my favorite videos that I've ever seen coming out of sports in general was a video by this one guy that asked another guy in the NBA. I forgot what his name was, but I forgot who the guy he was interviewing, but I want to say it was... shit. I want to say it was Michael Jordan and some other black guy that I forgot the name of, but he asked him, to Michael, does he think Kobe is better than LeBron? And Michael said that Kobe Bryant is like a little brother to him, and LeBron James is like a cousin to Michael Jordan and Kobe. Because at the end of the day, when you look at their skill levels and you look at how bad they wanted it, Michael Jordan taught and made Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant made and taught LeBron James. So if you bring those same models to the sport of boxing, Mike Tyson made Floyd Mayweather. Not saying skills-wise, but I'm saying promoting and money-wise, Floyd Mayweather was nothing if it wasn't for Mike Tyson pulling him up to the big stage. But before I get to that, let's talk about, I guess as far as what I was saying about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. When you look at how bad those athletes wanted it versus how much they needed to win and compete to their highest standards, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan were two of the most hungriest players that had the most highest dominance in the NBA. And the NBA is one of the most highly deepest skill level basketball organizations in the world. What you see is what you get out of the NBA. What styles you see is what you emulate out of the NBA. So those best players will always bring their best version of them to the court. A good number of them, not every NBA player, but the ones that are the household names in the NBA right now versus those back then, yeah, it's a different style, it's a different play set, because those guys were way different in mindset versus what you see today. But the player tenacity that you saw out of a guy like Michael Jordan that brought it to Kobe Bryant and then that brought it to LeBron James, those are like the last dying breed in the NBA. But my point is that what Michael Jordan said about Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, he said that Kobe is like a little brother to me. He has the drive to make sure that he will break neck and bone to win every single game. And if it has to mean that he has to sacrifice his life for it, he'll do it. That's how much Kobe Bryant loved the sport of basketball. And I mean, I'll never forget this till the day I die, and thereafter, probably forever, because shit, if I'm a spirit listening to that, I will be forever grateful to have listened to that speech. But Kobe Bryant said, the key to greatness, which I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember it all, but he said a good speech in the past. I forgot what it was, but it was an amazing speech that Kobe brought up to a massive audience. But he said that the key to greatness is that you bring your life to the highest standard, and you live the moments that you cherish for, the sake of your legacy and your career aspirations. That being that you are willing to sacrifice as much as you want to be successful. So you'll do anything in the world to bring yourself higher than other people, because that inequality is greater than any equality in the world. And that's how humans are built. We have to be unequal to one another. I cannot be the same to somebody else's philosophy. I'll never think like the other person right next to me. I'll always think better than that person. Why? It's not just because of who I am in the mirror. It's because I'm a human being. It's not just because you have black skin, I have white skin. It's because I'm a human being. That's why. If I'm better than you, I'm better than you. If I think more than you, I think more than you. If I create more than you, I create more than you. But you're not going to tell me in this world that we live in that we're all equals. We're not equal in life. Children do not make it through the day. Tomorrow is not promised. So therefore, you cannot guarantee your life to be set in stone when things are not going your way. Do you think Cardi B lives a good life? I don't think so. I think she's a very depressing person. I don't think she is as rich as she says that she is, because all this yip yap and talk about her rap life doesn't mean anything to the rest of the world where people are suffering and dying. What about those people? Does she ever reach out to those people and help them out? I don't think so. I don't think Cardi B thinks about that at all. She thinks about her own little fantasy world of what she believes in. And she doesn't do anything about it to fix it up. But guess what? That's inequality. That's the inequality that I'm talking about. There's going to be several, there's going to be those people in the world that think that they're at a higher level than you, but they don't understand that what they bring to their modern influence is that they have to have a set, they have to have a set standard to their way of life of how they want to view their mindset coming into the world, and they don't ever think about the inequality of themselves, of what they need to fix and what they need to improve in order to move better in life. And basically what I'm saying, to twirl back into the main argument for boxing, is that when you want it as bad or more than for what you need, you'll do anything in the world to be successful. But for those that don't want it and they are using it as a need to be less successful, then that's when your life will be overturned, to failure. And the final statement that I'm going to put out before I wrap this up with Oscar Valdez, fight card, is that you have to lose in order to win in the world. There is no such thing as winners and losers being the same thing. You have to win in life, you have to lose in life. But if you let your losses take more out of you than your wins, then you're going to stay losing. But if you let your wins overarch your losses and you keep winning, then you're always going to stay winning. Why? Because you are taking control of your life. You are setting the standard of initiating body ownership of your own autonomy as a human being to be the best human that you can be possible for your success for the rest of your life. And I guess the final note that I'll put out is that if you want it as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. If you don't want it as bad as you don't want to breathe, then you're never going to become successful, and you're going to end up putting yourself in a bad situation for failure. And that's how I kind of see most celebrities. A lot of them don't seek they don't seek success. They always bring themselves back to failure. But back to boxing, I thought Oscar Valdez, he lost this fight. I'm gonna get to the main event soon, but let me talk about the rest of the undercard. Xander Sayas, he did an amazing job. He gave that guy a lot of trouble. Xander definitely needs to, get his defense up. It's a little bit shaky. I mean, he's only 19, very young kid. I think Xander is a awesome fighter. I love watching him fight, and I think he's gonna give a lot of guys problems at 154. If I'm gonna match him up with somebody good, this is probably at least maybe 5 fights down the road. But I would say if I want to put him up with anybody at 154, I might as well just go to his box rec, but let me just take a look at it real quick. I'm sure Xander Sayas, he would appreciate this fight list if it's something that he wants to put on his hit list next. But I have some really good opponents that might possibly be good for the future. So let's take a look at it. even though he's with the top-ranked stable. But I don't really think that's really necessary. If they want to fight, they want to fight. I don't know why they say he's at welterweight. He's at super welter. But let's go to super welterweight, and he's like what? Xander, yeah, he's 79. So let's convert that to super welterweight at number 79 and up. I'm sure that will tell me a little bit better of where things are. But if he's gonna fight some really good guys at 154, I think the next opponent, or the next 5 opponents that he should take a look at investing a fight in, would be number 1, Jamonte Clark. I think that is a great fight for Xander Zayas. That will be a very difficult fight for him, but a Jamonte Clark for a 10-rounder would be amazing. That's my number 1. Number 2 would be Brian Mendoza. We saw him against Mr. Jesus Ramos Jr. I would love that fight. I am all for the smoke. I don't care what you guys have to say. Xander Zayas, if I am the one to control matchmaking and boxing, I'm putting you up against killers. Alright, number 3 would be Leon Lawson III. And we just recently saw him lose to Nathaniel Gallimore the other day. So I wouldn't mind Nathaniel Gallimore if that was a fight that could be made in the future, but I don't think that's going to be a good fight. Because Xander, he's 9-0 or 10-0. No, he's 10-0, right? Yeah, I think he's 10-0. I need to go back to that. I'm sorry, but I'm just like all over the place with my thinking. But I think Leon Lawson the third would be a great fight. Some other fights that I wouldn't mind for number 4 would be Abel Mina. I hear he is a good fighter. He's actually a pretty decent fighter out of Ecuador. That'd be a good fight to probably invest into the future. And then the 5th and last fight that I would like to see him face, I don't know if this is a good fight or worth a good fight, but if he could get a fight against Cordell Booker, I think that would be a very good fight. Or Satarin Akhmedov. I hear he's a really good fight. Yeah, he's a really good fighter himself. He's out of Kazakhstan, out of Canada, 23 years old, very young lion. He's fought some, he's fought some decent level competition. He fought Stefan Daniel, Jose Villalobos, Johnny Navarrete. Decent names. Definitely not the best fighter in the world, but if you want to have a good premier fight for Xander, at least face young cats on the come up just like him, or young warriors or young soldiers. But some other good fights that we could see him in, I wouldn't mind a Bryant Perella. That might be pushing it a little bit too far because Xander, he's only a prospect, so we should probably look at prospect fights or semi-contender fights. I actually wouldn't mind Greg Vendetti. I know he's fighting this bum by the name of Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy Williams. Not really that much of a good fight, but I actually want to mind it because I think Xander, he would stop this guy. That would be a good, that'd be a good step-up contender fight. I would definitely not mind that fight. But if we want to go a bit further into the 154, I wouldn't mind Sergey Boyachuk. That would be a good fight. I think Xander, he would stop him. Troy Williamson, that would be a really tough fight. Or Hirinobu Mutasaga. Yeah, I think Xander, he would destroy a shitload of people out of this whole division. But Gary O'Sullivan, I actually want to mind that fight, even though Gary, he's an old guy, but I want to feed Xander to him. I'd actually like to see him and Charles Conwell, Jesus Ramos Jr. face each other. Tony Harrison, I don't think that fight would ever happen down the line. But him and Sebastian Fundora, yeah, I would like to see that. Ted Cheeseman, he would beat the crap out of Ched. Jared Hurd, that would be a good fight. that would have to be a fight like at least 5 to 6 fights down the line. I think Xander, he needs to get a lot more experience in before he's going to be in the conversation to face those type of guys. I wouldn't mind Brandon Adams, Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames, he's really good. I think Xander, he definitely have some trouble with a guy like him, but either way, I think those are my good set 5 opponents that I just mentioned earlier about him. So, whatever we can see out of Xander Sayas, I hope that can be made for him in the future, because, you know, we obviously want to see Xander Sayas get a world title, and I think 154 is extremely stacked with the best competition, and I think Xander, he needs to make the move to probably go into PBC, because I don't think Top Rank is going to give him a title shot unless Bob Arum has his pockets with the WBO, with, like, you know, which, you know, Top Rank always does with the WBO, but it's not always a guarantee to give somebody a title shot unless the rankings are like rigged into that fighter's favor, which I don't see that happening for Xander, because Xander, he's obviously a coincidentalist fighter. So I think where Xander's career is going to go, it's going to go to the path of him just padding up his resume little by little, and then when he understands of the business of boxing, to see where his career needs to be elevated, especially if you want to become a big star. I don't see Xander growing his legacy with Top Rank. I see Top Rank fighters leaving and sprouting out to bigger and better things on Showtime and PBC and other big fight networks that can represent a fighter's lifestyle a lot better. But on top of that, I would actually not mind other networks. If not, like, I'd like to see a fight league in boxing. Like, if boxing can set up the old league that obviously got outlawed by the state for sanctioning bodies, I would like to see that. If there was a National Boxers Association similar to the NBA, non-unionized in that manner, I would like that. But then again, if people think unions are good and they want to have their own type of league to experiment that, go right ahead. I don't think that's a good idea, because my position on that is a pretty long position, only for the sake of economical reasoning. But when we take a look at it from a objective standpoint, boxing should be set up like a fighters league, where you come into the game, you have to face face these top level opponents, especially if you're going to represent yourself to a higher standard, to the higher level. I think those higher level fighters would like to go through a league to make sure that they're proving themselves to the world in that particular league itself, to make sure that they are number one. Because at least that way, that shows credibility within a sanctionized organization that represents everybody to be financially compensated and fairly respected in that sport alone. So I think that's a good idea to do that, because we see that in the NHL and the NBA and the NFL, everybody is at a fair standard. There's barely any cheating going on, because that's always cleaned up. And I mean, I've yet to really see anything corruptive lately, but you could see that the level of corruption has really gone down by a huge margin. Because at one point, yeah, you know, if we do look at it in other sports, there was a lot of corruption in the NFL, NBA, NHL, and I'm never to say that cheating will ever go away, but if you could reduce it to the lowest level of cheating being caught, I'm perfectly fine with that. But if it is possible to get rid of cheating entirely, where you have stricter rules of regulation within a sports organization, that is better to do that, so that way players know that when they get into their games or when they get into their competition, that they are tested to the level of everyone's equal benefit, to make sure whoever wins better than anyone else wins. And I mean, anytime when we do see cheating in any sport, it's always brought to the mainstream media, especially with old media, but with new media, it's like we're always like the first ones calling that shit out anyway. So I think it's better for boxing to have that, so that way boxing, all this nasty crap that you see in the sport now, it can be gone and washed away. And the benefits of that for the long-term future, for a decentralized type market, for it to exist, I think that's what's going to happen. Eventually the sport will correct itself, but it corrects itself for people like myself and many others to call this out, and that way the awareness for it could be set, and then the marketized innovations for it can come last, so that way everybody can be basically treated the same way, and people enjoy the sport that we love to see in a fair, marketized manner. But moving on, let's talk about the co-main event. We're going to talk about Mr. Gabriel Flores Jr. versus Jose Luis Lopez, Luis Lopez. I'll put it like that. Yeah, his name was Luis Lopez Sanchez, but Luis Lopez, he was a good fighter, man. I was really shocked that Gabriel, he got exposed in this fight, but it was a decent fight, to say the least. Not too much of a fight that I really thought it was gonna go that far for Gabriel, for him to struggle and actually, take his first loss. Unfortunately, he lost by unanimous decision, but it almost kind of looked like that Luis Lopez almost stopped Gabriel, and good enough that Gabriel, he held his own. But it was a fight that I knew that Luis Lopez, he went through a lot of hell, especially training wise, to get ready for this fight. I was pretty happy that Gabriel went through a good test, because I was recently thinking of like what type of opponents at 130 would give him the most trouble. And what I could see out of this fight is that Gabriel, he definitely lacks a lot of defense late game. He falls off in the sense of not keeping his hands up when he is in the clinch and when he's coming out of the clinch. And I think when you look at how he fights good as a boxer, but when he is in pressure, he needs to learn how to initiate proper adjustments to make sure he wins fights a lot easier off his back foot, because he is a really good outside boxer, but inside fighting, I think he needs to he needs to improve. But that obviously doesn't really faze him, because he gets better every time when he fights. But I think when we saw his last three fights, I would say, we'll start with Jason Valdez. He stopped him. That was a beautiful fight. I liked that fight. Jason Valdez gave him a lot of trouble, but still, he knocked him out. That was a good fight. Ryan Kielczewski, Ryan definitely gave him some good shots that definitely threw him off, and he still won that fight decisively. Amazing fight. Josec Ruiz, that was a good fight. I enjoyed that fight. Josec Ruiz, he definitely gave he gave Gabriel some problems. That was definitely worth a good fight to watch. But he definitely gave Josec some issues to not really give himself too much of a brawl for it all type of fight that made Gabriel think more about what punches that he's going to throw to make the fight even, if not more higher into his favor. But still, it was a good fight for Gabriel to grow and understand better. Because, don't get it twisted. Gabriel, he doesn't really, he has a good amateur, decent background. He started coming into the pros and he got signed by Top Rank at 16, 17 years old. I think it was 16 years old, but he's been boxing for quite a long time. So, I'm not going to just sit here and say Gabriel, he's not that good of a fighter, blah, blah, blah. His career is over. His career, no fighter's career is over until they say it's over. So, that, that's applied to any athlete out there that is going to be the best at what they want to do. But Luis Lopez was the same guy that defeated Andy Vences. So, maybe it had to do with the style, of Luis Lopez. His style definitely gave definitely gave Gabriel Flores a tough fight, because the last three fights that we saw, fucking Luis Lopez in, we saw Moro Laredo, he knocked him out. Andy Vences, he barely won that fight. That was a tough fight that a lot of people thought he lost, but Andy Vences, I guess he lost that fight fair and square. Good for you. Christian Baez, uh, if this is the same Baez that I know, which I don't think it is, yeah, he's a southpaw Venezuelan, but yeah, I guess he knocked his ass out and he won that fight. But he lost to Ruben Villa. Wow, he lost to some really good names. But I mean, his resume speaks for itself. He's definitely up there. It's not like he's a bad fighter. This guy is definitely world title bound after defeating Gabe Flores. But like, I guess like the main question is, where do I see Gabe go from here? And I think the easiest answer for this is that just keep fighting tougher names, because I think it's good that Gabe actually got a loss out of this fight, which I don't like to say that, but I'm just saying that as far as like his record goes. Gabe definitely has a lot of good, improvements to be made in his game, and I think as Gabe faces tougher styles, he's going to be up there in challenging the better opposition. Because I can definitely see Gabe face some really good names. He could face Abraham Nova. That was a fight that I was thinking that him and AB would probably run, would probably fight it out in the future. I actually wouldn't mind that fight. That would be a very difficult fight for Gabe. Christian Tapia, that is a amazing fight for Gabe. Like, I guess like what I'm trying to say is that as long as he's facing the tougher opposition, there's really nothing you could say about Gabe saying, oh, he's not facing this guy, he's not facing that guy, blah blah blah, and it's simply not true, because he's at least stepping it up every way he can go to, and he is getting better from it. And it's good that he's doing that, because it doesn't mean that he's a bad fighter. He's an amazing fighter. I think Gabe knows that his skills are gonna just keep improving as they go. And it's kind of weird how Boxer put him down 11 placements down in rank, knowing that, he's only 20-1, but it's like, you just put him down in ranking as far as the world rankings go. Yeah, so that shit don't make any sense. I don't understand why Boxer is so biased like that, but I guess like, oh, if you lose a fight, then that means that you're never going to get to that world title quicker. And that's simply not fucking true. All the greats have lost. So just because Gabe loses doesn't mean his life is over in boxing. Get the hell out of here. But I think the next 5 opponents, that would be a possible good matchup for Gabe in the future. Obviously, I want to see him and Abraham Nova fight each other. We already know the situation with AB, but for those of you that don't know, Abraham Nova is not at 130 for now. He's at 126. He's going to try to get a title there. And then if he is successful against Emmanuel Navarrete, which he says he wants to face at 126 first, and try to maybe go after other champions down there, then he's going to bump right back up to 130, and then he's going to do the same exact thing. I don't think Abraham should probably do that, just because, like, part of me feels like 126 might not be a good weight for him. But if he's good and, he's right on his words where he says that he's getting a nutritionist and he's going to make sure that he's able to maintain the weight, then by all means do it. I'm just saying, as a, as a fan and just as a person that cares about, the health and safety of any athlete, I think it's better to trust your body, to know where your body can hold your limitations, to make sure you're not putting yourself in a bad position. But I'm pretty sure he knows that, and I'm hoping that he can succeed at 126. He fought that Richard Pumitpich, Filipino guy. He was a really good, rough, rugged fighter that gave AB some trouble, but AB definitely handled him very well. He obviously had a lot of improving to work with, but I think that'll come with time and effort. And I think when he's comfortable at 126 with, I guess, not the weight issue, because obviously him coming into that fight, he obviously didn't look as strong as he usually does compared to 130, because, I personally feel like 130 is like, his biggest advantage weight. But if 126 works well, then good for him. I'd like to see where things go from there on out. But let's talk about Mr. Gabriel Flores. I think realistically a good next lineup of opponents that could be good for the future would be one, Jaime Arboleda. That is a good fight. I think him and Gabriel, they both come off of losses, but they're good contender style opponents. Just as far as how Jaime fights, he's a pressure fighter, but Gabriel, he's that type of fighter that likes to box and move, so he's a boxer puncher. I would probably say he's more of a boxer. He's more of an outside boxer mover, but I'd say he's more of a boxer. That's what I would call anybody that likes to move, likes to be slick, but they don't have like a lot of power in them. Because we could obviously see that Gabriel, he doesn't really have enough power to keep people back away from him. So, I think him and Jaime Arboleda should be the first fight that could be made for the future. The second fight I like to see is maybe Eduardo Hernandez or Jezreel Corrales. That's a really good fight to be made. I think those are amazing fights. Not just good fights. Those are amazing fights to be made. That's for the number 2 spot between those two guys. And number 3 would be, I would like to see, I wouldn't mind a Nakathila fight. I think Jeremiah Nakathila and Gabe Flores, that would be a good fight. They both come off of losses, and that's worth a battle to be tested for. And then I'd say for number 4 would be Claudio Marrero. I think that's a really good fight for Gabriel. That'll give Gabriel a lot of problems. Claudio, he's not as how should I say, the fastest fighter ever, but he definitely has a good amount of power to give Gabe some issues. And I think that'll definitely give him, the best tests to be made. And if it's possible, I'd like to see him run it back with Luis Lopez. I think him and Luis Lopez is, worth a fight. And that would be a good matchup as far as styles go. But if that can't be made, I think for number 5 spot would be between Lamont Roach or Xavier Martinez. See, I think these are two good opponents because these two guys, if they end up fighting each other, I wouldn't mind that fight because I think, honestly, these two guys are like one of the best fighters. As far as underrated fighters go, they definitely bring the best out of 130. So, I think where things are in the division itself is extremely powerful, and it has a lot of growing to do. And I think where things are with that division, you have a lot of good young talent that's coming up, especially guys like O'Shaquie Foster, he's on his way to a world title. But I think for Gabriel Flores, he's definitely on his way to success. He's good at what he does. I think as far as weaknesses go, he just needs to work better off of defensive pressure. He needs to be careful of not letting pressure get to him. And I think he just needs to work more on using better adjustments when he gets plucked into the inside. Especially somebody like Luis Lopez that definitely gave him a lot of pressure on the inside. And Gabriel, he broke down pretty bad. But I think with him learning that experience, he's not going to phase out from that type of fight, and it's really nothing to be sad about because just because you lost doesn't mean it's the end of the world until you let yourself lose, mentally and physically, to say that you can't beat anybody at the top. So I think it'll be interesting to see where Flores will move forward, because I personally think he's a really tremendous fighter. I think he's fit for that championship mentality, and he's not this type of fighter where I think like he just gives up. If he gets hurt or banged up. Obviously, this is not the first experience that we've seen him get styled on, or at least just get out pressured and outgunned by somebody that has a lot more maturity in their fight game, and they use a lot more offensive pressure than usual. But that's why styles make fights, and good enough that Gabe he got a test that was worth his battle. But I think where he goes in his career, it's really nothing to be worried about because, you're 21 years old. You have a really good 15 plus years in your career. That's how the average boxer really goes. But either way, when you start young and you learn young on the job, then losses really shouldn't mean anything other than these are just lessons. And the more you learn from these victories and losses, the better you will become as an athlete altogether, no matter what sport you play. But I have high hopes for him. He'll definitely be good from this defeat. But I hope he does return because he's a really good fighter, man. He's not a prospect. He's a up and level or up and coming contender, and I don't see Gabe really losing to a lot of people as many would think he would lose to. He definitely has a lot of skill gap, improvement to work on, but all those improvements will come with more passionate time and effort. And I think where he goes, down the road, it doesn't really matter what opponent he really faces. As long as he's facing the best, I'm perfectly fine with it. But with those 5 opponents I'd like to see him in there with, I hope that can be made because I think he's ready for the top dogs at 130. You have 21 plus fights under your resume, so I think it's time for you to time for Gabe to step it up, so he could be ready for those killers at 130. All right, so let's move with the main event. I'm not gonna cover this as much. Robson Conceiciao versus Oscar Valdez. I thought this was a pure robbery. Oscar Valdez got his ass outboxed for pretty much the entire fight. At the most, I really only gave Oscar Valdez 3 rounds. If not, to be generous enough, I only really gave him 4. I thought Conceiciao outboxed the living crap out of Oscar Valdez. He gave him a lot of trouble on the outside, planted his punches down for the first 7 rounds, gave up, I want to say round 7 and round 8. He gave those rounds away. And then he gave a couple rounds late into the fight. I want to say maybe round 10 and round 11. But round 9 and round 12, he definitely won those rounds. I thought Conceiciao, he gave Oscar Valdez, a tough fight. A fight in which I thought Conceiciao decisively won. You could just clearly see with the punches that were thrown and landed. I don't ever see Oscar Valdez holding this WBC title any much longer because I think with the competition that he quote-unquote wants to face, he's not going to be able to do that because he's going to have to be forced to fight Shakur Stevenson if he is successful against Jamel Herring, which I'm going to get to that later. I'm actually going to talk about, the press conference between Shakur Stevenson and Jamel Herring and what are my thoughts on that fight. But I think either way, it just shows that in the sport of boxing, no matter how much you try to avoid and duck competition, you will eventually see yourself in a bad position as you keep depreciating your skill level and your exposure to better level opposition will come to you. See now, in this fight with Valdez and Conceiciao, Conceiciao was a former Olympian that won gold in Rio back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And he defeated Oscar Valdez in the Pan American Games, in which Conceiciao gave Oscar Valdez a lot of trouble with his jab. And he also pushed Oscar Valdez to his back foot, which he's not good at doing. And Oscar Valdez, he gets his ass beat on the inside when he lets a fighter use their outside boxing onto them. See now, with Oscar Valdez, he is not that good off of taking trades and countering back with a good lead left hook or a straight right jab. And I think where you see Oscar Valdez's weakness, every time when he gets pieced up, he always goes back. He never replies back with any body shots or any proper reflexes or any good resets where he can move out of the corner and try to force a fight on the inside, because that's really where his strengths are. Oscar Valdez, he's an inside fighter. He's not a good outside fighter. He gets outboxed on the outside. So the only way he really does well is that he forces his punches to the inside. So as I saw this fight go down, I was thinking inside my head, like, okay, Conceiciao, he is just beating Oscar Valdez with an outside jab, keeping him to the outside, making him think, and making him reset, so that way when he goes in, he's always getting resetted with a jab or a good straight right or a straight left uppercut. And it's just so simple to see the weaknesses out of Valdez, and makes me wonder, like, why the hell do you have to cheat against a unknown Brazilian fighter that was ranked 15 by the WBC? So, like, how is he even able to be called up as a mandatory against Oscar Valdez? Shouldn't Shakur Stevenson be the mandatory, knowing that he's number one in the WBC? So you can easily see this to be a problem, because Shakur Stevenson, I would really hope if he defeats Jamel Herring, he's next in line to face Oscar Valdez, because if that contract is still active within the details that are written in it, Shakur Stevenson gets Oscar Valdez next. And if that's going to be a mandatory unification fight, which obviously that doesn't exist in boxing, which I feel like champions should be forcing mandatories to each other, because you should not be holding a fucking belt if you're representing a sanctioned body and then they say to you, hey, why aren't you going to go after other champions? There can only be one champion that's undisputed, right? You shouldn't just be letting your other contemporary just hold the belts. Even if that person is your brother or your friend, you still want that belt, right? So it should be a forced mandatory unification, or else both of you get stripped and then let the next two guys fight each other, and then boom, bang it out. That's how everything should be. So I'm just hoping that if he beats Jamel Herring, or if Jamel beats Shakur, this is going to lead to a unification bout with Oscar Valdez, because Oscar Valdez, he showed a lot of holes in his game where he wasn't really that comfortable, and I can now see why Valdez had to cheat, because Valdez, he's not that good of a fighter. He's not that good of a mover either, because you can see that in the Miguel Burchelt fight, and let's just say let the Adam Lopez fight, that Adam Lopez, he was piecing his ass up. He was giving him some massive trouble, especially on the inside and on the outside. So Valdez, he had to resort to taking phentermine or whatever drug it was, which obviously is a dangerous drug, by the way, and can kill you if you use it the wrong way. But when you looked at how he conditioned himself in this fight, he was gassed out. So does it just show that Oscar Valdez isn't that good of a late game fighter? Because his early game is okay. It's not the best. It's definitely exposing, and it's definitely questionable, because he throws all these punches, but then late into the fight, he gets his ass beat the hell up. You could just see him become a balloon, with his face being all ballooned up and red bruises and shit, because he's not that good of a fighter defensively. Offensively, yeah, you could see him throw punches all day, but that's not going to help you win the fight. What helps you win the fight is that you know how to box, you know how to pick your shots, you know how to be methodical, you know how to be a slick style fighter. That's boxing. That's being the mastermind of your fighters, being the matador and the fighter being the bull. So if you're the one controlling the fight and becoming the ring general of the fight, then you win. But Oscar Valdez didn't do any of that. Conceiciao did that. He made Oscar Valdez think the entire fight, confused him, pressured him, pretty much embarrassed him the entire fight. But you're meaning to tell me, as a fan of the sport, and as somebody who watches boxing, especially at the casual level, to tell me that Oscar Valdez won that fight? He did not win shit. His fans even knew it too. They're like, oh, Oscar Valdez. And then every time when Conceiciao was outboxing him, just punching him to death, everybody was just keeping quiet. They're like, oh. And, you know, like, you obviously knew that they were just like a bunch of Mexican dick-riding people. No disrespect to the Mexican people, but I'm just keeping it real to say that for you guys to support a cheater like that shows your ignorance and bliss of how mentally retarded you guys are raised to be. Because if that's how the Mexican Foundation of Boxing really started out with, then that is a really, really shitty community of shitty people. Just putting that out there. But then again, I don't see Mexican fighters to be like that. I think a good number of Mexican boxers are very good fighters. I think a good number of them that don't cheat, they just come into the rankings, they do their job, and then they just try to go back home. My favorite Mexican fighters that I personally love watching is obviously Jesus Ramos Jr. That's the homeboy. Much love to you, homie. Number 2 is definitely Mauricio Lara. Much respect to you. You beat the shit out of Josh Warrington. He almost stopped him in the UK, but obviously Warrington, he's a dirty ass fighter. But I'm gonna count that as a victory because he should have won that fight. It should have just been a disqualification, honestly. Disqualification towards Josh Warrington. But, you know, we already know that boxing politics is racist to begin with, no matter how you slice it. Number 3 would definitely be, who's number 3? Oh, man. I want to say Xavier Martinez, but he's obviously Mexican-American. But pure Mexican fighters, like, from Mexico, oh, shit. I don't even know. Man, I'm trying to think of that kid that I saw. Oh, man, I forgot his name. Yeah, they got some good competition. I'll go with Zurdo Ramirez. He's a good fighter. Oh, yeah, Jose. Yeah, Jose Ramirez and Zurdo. I'll use those guys for number 3 and 4. And then number 5. Man, who's number 5, man? I'm trying to think of this guy's name. He fights at 147? Oh, Abel Ramos. Yeah, Abel Ramos. Yep, Abel Ramos. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much my top 5 Mexicans that I love watching. They're good fighters. They are, you know, obviously freak athletes. They know what they're doing as far as their career goes, and I hope to see them in bigger fights because those guys definitely know how to bang, man. So yeah, either way, that's pretty much it. I thought Conceiciao, he got robbed in that fight. He obviously won 8 rounds to 4, 9 rounds to 3. Shit, I even go to say 10 rounds to 2, honestly. But Oscar Valdez, he's a drug cheat. Fuck Oscar Valdez. As far as Conceiciao goes, I think Conceiciao, he should have pulled out of this fight. He should have filed U.S. federal charges against the WBC and against Oscar Valdez. I think Oscar Valdez, he needs to go to prison. He is not a clean fighter. It pretty much shows in his arsenal that he had to cheat in order to get a robbery decision and a fight that he really barely won anyway. But as far as you guys know, the fucking judges were fucking racist as hell. It was pretty much 117 to 110 for Oscar Valdez, and I guess he won on all 3 scorecards, but the last 2 scorecards was 115 to 113. So basically, they're basically saying that Oscar Valdez won at least 9 rounds to 3 in the first fight card. If it's 117 to 110, if I'm correct, at least 9 rounds to 3 on the first scorecard, and then for the second one had to have been 8 rounds to 4 or 7 rounds, to 5. That's how fucked up the sport of boxing is, man. But Either way, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just, well, you know, it does matter to me, but still, as far as like the severity goes, it is still a problem. But the problem itself is still existent. But I've just seen it all too much. But that's pretty much what I had to say, man. This needs to be called out. This needs to be, exposed more. Oscar Valdez, he needs to be charged with criminal charges on top of the WBC. Hopefully that word can be spread out more. But if you guys enjoy this video, or if y'all hated this video, please drop a like. I don't care, because for those of you that want to come out and try to dick ride for Oscar Valdez, I will gladly expose you everywhere. But for those of you guys that do enjoy the truth, that what I brought out with this video, please drop a like, share the video, do what you guys got to do. I appreciate every single one of you that come through to this channel. And that's pretty much it, man. Alright, so this is Kieran Rodriguez signing out. Thank you, and goodbye.